indivisible. My name is Bill Eastman. I'm from Arlington. I am a local troublemaker. I'm a former member of the state Republican Delegation.
It's been a fantastic week. Thank y'all so much. I want to have a little point of personal privilege this morning. I want to tell you, this morning I woke up very early and I started doing my wash. Don't you hate that guy who leaves his stuff in the public washer thing and doesn't have his wash done in time and leaves it in the dryer? Well, I am that guy this morning, so please just transfer my stuff over if you get there before I get back, okay? Just do that for me, please. Thank you all very much. And so we're going to jump right into our program this morning because we've got a lot of stuff going on. And so, Congressman Jeb Pensarley here this morning. All right. Just take your time, Congressman. We're good. We're good. We're in good shape. No, sir. We're in good shape. Congressman Jeb Pensarley represents the 5th Congressional District and was elected to Congress in 2002. He is recognized as a conservative leader in Congress and an outspoken advocate for economic opportunity, individual liberty, and religious freedom. He is chairman of the House Financial Services Committee and has chaired the House Republican Conference. He is a leader in Congress. He is also a former law school attendee with our former chairman, Steve Ministeri, and he is a proud Texas A&M advocate. Probably no one better to talk about our Republican vice presidential nominee than our 5th District Congressman Jeb Pensarley. Not only is he in Mike Pence's corner, he was actually sitting with his family last night in his box. Ladies and gentlemen, our Congressman Jeb Pensarley.
Howdy, Texas. I want to say good morning because on my way to do a couple of media interviews, I noticed a few of you were still stumbling in from last evening, so just to clarify, it is now officially morning. Forgive me for the dramatic interest. I was still preaching the virtues of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the back of the room to our friends in the media, and forgive me for adjusting the microphone, but everything's bigger in Texas but me, so I had to adjust it to my 5, 6, and 3/4 frame here. Okay, well that's what passes for humor, and I have this morning. We all remember Franklin's words, "A republic if you can keep it." And ladies and gentlemen, our back is against the wall. It is our generation's time to answer that question, to do our duty, to keep this republic, to save the blessings of liberty, not just for ourselves, but more importantly, for our posterity. And we have threats. We have threats domestic. We have threats that are foreign. We have the face of evil in radical Islamic terrorism, and it is an enemy that does not deserve our empathy, it deserves our destruction. We have enemies domestically. We have a federal government that has grown too big, too powerful, too expensive, too intrusive, too unaccountable, too arrogant, and I would offer a few more adjectives, but I have run out of breath. It is a threat. It is a threat to every liberty-loving Texan in America, and it must be reined in. This is, we do, go ahead. Go ahead. And it's a stark contrast. It's a stark contrast between Hillary Clinton, me, the government, and we, the people, and we, the people, must be victorious. a set of remarks that I had prepared, and I threw it out because I really want to talk about my good friend, Mike Pence. I've got many blessings in life. My wife, my family. But I got to tell you, there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother, so saith Scripture, and that is Mike Pence to me, and that is Mike Pence to America. Let me tell you, the most important job you have as a presidential nominee is to select a running mate. Donald Trump could not have done better in picking Mike Pence. Mike Pence is one of the most principled conservative leaders in America today. I was proud to be at his side for many fights in Congress, some quite unpleasant. Mike never shied away from a fight with his leadership, be it over earmarks, be it over the Wall Street bailout. He stood on principle consistently. He stood with the Constitution, and he always did it in a respectful fashion, never throwing anyone under the bus, but never, ever flinching. And I know in our party we have to look forward and not look backward, but I don't know what you heard last night, but if I close my eyes, I think I heard the faint resonance of Ronald Reagan in the voice of Michael Pence. Mike is a man who speaks from the heart. He comes from the heartland. And there is no doubt in my mind that millions and millions of Americans can identify with him and his family. You know, he comes up with his self-deprecating humor. He showed that he could go toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton, and he can make the case for Donald Trump. He also showed that he is ready to lead and govern from the first day of the Trump-Pence administration. Well, my guess is I speak for most Texans when I say Donald Trump was not necessarily my first choice in the primary. It wasn't my second choice. It wasn't my third choice. It wasn't really my 8th or 10th choice. But you know what? He is my nominee, and I'm going to give him 110%. Jimmy Weaver. Jimmy, where are you? Last night, there's Jimmy. And Jimmy crystallized it down. He said, you know what? There is so much we can survive, but we cannot survive the destruction of our Constitution. I think it was Adams who said, and maybe I've got the quote right, that our Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. Is unsuitable for any other. The first thing we must do, ladies and gentlemen, is be a moral and religious American society. That's how we first defend our Constitution. And there's so much at stake. Imagine what could happen in the third term of Barack Obama. And that's what Hillary Clinton is. It's not the third term of Bill Clinton. It is the third term of Barack Obama. Religious liberty would be in retreat. Religious liberty, the most important liberty we have, would be in retreat. The right to keep and bear arms for personal and, more importantly, for collective self-defense would be in retreat. Due process out the window. Swarms of arrogant, unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats coming to take your wealth, your freedom, and to eat out your substance. Amen. The Constitution under assault. That's what's at stake here, ladies and gentlemen. So it's time for all of us It's time for all of us to put the primaries in the past. We had them. We mixed it up. We didn't quite all get our way. But there is too many things that are important. But I see a better day. I see a much better day. Because as Lincoln said, all we need to do is navigate by the fixed stars in the constellation. And if we will navigate by the fixed stars of faith and family and free enterprise and freedom as enshrined in our Constitution, the greatest document ever conceived by the mind of man, to make sure that ordinary men and women can achieve extraordinary results with God's gift in this land we call America, where the blessings of liberty have never, ever been more abundant and enjoyed more readily. If we will do that, then we will have kept faith with our forefathers, our founding fathers, and our fathers. And yes, America can be great again. God bless you, Texas. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. Ms. Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes Vienna Schlapp is co-founder of Code Strategies. She is a Fox News contributor, and she's a conservative political commentator for both English and Spanish media. She has served as director of specialty media at the White House under President George W. Bush, and she's actually here to speak with us this morning. Ms. Mercedes Schlapp.
I figured it would be a lot more fun if I brought my sidekick, Matt Schlapp. You're lucky we didn't bring our 5 children over here as well on stage, because I think they'd be a little too loud. But in Texas, you all are bold and loud, which is what we love here at the Schlapp family. My husband, Matt Schlapp, is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. We do the big event, CPAC, every year, and it is a big family affair, and we hope all of you in Texas come over and join us next year. And so we're going to do our little speaking show that we like to put together once in a while. We won't sing or dance, but why don't we come on up here and we'll get it going.
Okay, so it's a really interesting political moment, as it's been all year. And we're looking at across the country, and we're looking at what's happened. 7.5 years of Barack Obama. 7.5 years. I think someone cheered because it's almost 8, right? And time is coming to an end. The Obama era will end. Hallelujah! You know what? Mercy told you that I chair the American Conservative Union. It is an organization established by the great William F. Buckley, who also established the National Review. And it was established so that all of us, when it comes to politics, could work together to get political victories and to get public policy victories. We're conservatives of all different stripes. We have a lot of new people that are looking at our cause. Because you know what? There's a lot of people who voted for Barack Obama. There are. He did pretty well. You have to give the guy credit. He cleaned our clock in 2008. And a lot of people voted for him. Good Americans, patriotic, good people voted for him. They were confused. And you know what happens when you wake up in your mother's basement and you don't have a job and you don't have very much in your savings account? You get kind of upset. And there's a lot of people who bought into the Obama idea and the Obama agenda who are now saying, boy, that's not me. And they don't know what they are. They don't know if they're a conservative. They don't know where they might stack up. But I think our movement and our party, and I always say this, with no offense to the elephant, I am a conservative first, and I'm a Republican second. When I go home and I've said something on TV that wasn't exactly right, my conservative wife reminds me I was wrong. Yours too? I feel so much better, it's not just me. So I would just say to you that let's remember at the end of the day, conservatives, we're going to have disagreements. We're going to look at each other sometimes and say we should be taking this route or that route. But let's all remember one thing that's critical. When we get up in the morning and get on our knees, and the only good thing about President Barack Obama is he's encouraged all of us to get on our knees and thank God for this great country and ask him for his blessings, that when we do this, that we remember that our enemy is the left. It's our political enemy. That's who we have to fight every day. That's who we have to take on. And I am incredibly optimistic and motivated and pumped that more Americans than ever before decided to participate in the Republican primary process and get out there and vote. And I think that's a great thing.
We're both so honored to be here. Matt and I met at the White House under President George W. Bush, a fellow Texan. And I have to tell you one thing that Texas really knows how to do well is produce great leaders. And we are praying for your community that is hurting, for the great city of Dallas. And we pray for our law enforcement and that we're able to find healing in our nation and we're able to put the division aside. And I have to tell you, we feel your pain, and I know as a country we can come together. I can tell you one thing. I know this week has been very, very exciting, very emotional. It reminds me of our wedding day, quite frankly. I gotta go there. So on our wedding day, we were down in Miami Beach. It was really, really hot. We had the Cubans on one side, because my family's Cuban. Thank you, my fellow Cubana. And then Schlapp's family, the Germans, right? It's very serious. Are you too married? Oh. And then, so we had this wonderful priest come in from the Vatican, and he gives this very long speech. I'd say about an hour, homily. Needless to say, Matt starts turning purple in the face and he's about to faint. It gets worse because my mother's like, she's never going to get married. This is her only hope. If this guy dies, who's she going to marry? Well, moments later, as the homily continued on a variety of political topics, my mother throws up in a shoebox and also faints. It gets worse. Then, my father, who has a heart condition, also drops to the ground. So my sweet aunt comes up to us. This whole thing is happening. We've got several folks in the back calling the ambulance. They're coming over to get my father. And I'm going, Schlapp, is everything okay? And he would just kind of hold me. He wouldn't let me look back. Then my aunt comes over and is crying. And I said, so how's Dad? And she's like, he's doing okay. And I say this because it was by far, how would you describe it? The most
horrific.
Yeah. The most disastrous wedding day that a Cuban American princess would ever experience in her life. But what is this? It's not about the wedding day. It's about the marriage. It's about the marriage. And guess what, guys, gals, my fellow Cubans and Mexicans and African Americans and Asian Americans, We're in a marriage together. We are together. And you know what? 14 years, we disagree all the time. I'm always asking him to take out the garbage. I end up taking out the garbage. Sorry, sweetie. And guess what? We have 5 different daughters with very different opinions. And I'm sure if I were to line them up, they would pick a different candidate, one after the other. But here's the deal. At the end, we need to show kindness and respect and compassion for each other. We've got the same goal. And the same goal is that we have the right principles. We have the principles of protecting our religious liberties, of ensuring that our children have the best quality education for all Americans. And we have a responsibility to take our message to the inner cities, to the minority communities. We need to take it to our neighbors, the stay-at-home moms, the stay-at-home dads, the single mother who is working 2 jobs trying to get her children to be able to go to college. We owe it. We also have to get to the millennials. Such an important message. That next generation. We want to teach them about hard work and faith and community. And so, I speak from the heart, I really do, because I love our party. I love being able to talk to the grassroots that are out there. I mean, sometimes Shop and I call him Shop, Matt, sweet. Sometimes I call him Mateo. I have to tell you, sometimes living in Alexandria, you feel like you live in a bubble. And I can tell you some green room stories at Fox, but I won't, because there's too many cameras back there. But I have to tell you, sometimes I feel like living in that Washington bubble, they don't get it. They don't get it. Woo. They don't understand that in that great state of Texas, with the great leaders, the governors, the senators, the congressmen, who fight every day to say, man, don't mess with Texas. That's right. And that's what I want my children to learn. I want them to be independent. We want to teach them that they can have their opinions, but also that it is based, their opinions based on their values, their principles, their faith, their God-given rights that we as Republicans, we as conservatives need to protect and ensure that we can help push democracy, help ensure that there's democracy in America. My father was in jail for 6 years under the Castro regime. He was tortured. But you know what he taught this little girl right here, who married the gringo right over here? We won't get into that because God only knows they wanted to make sure I was married Cuban, but that would mean I would end up either with Ted Cruz or with Marco Rubio. So, you know what my dad taught this little girl? You know, he's 81 years old, quiet man. And I remember he would watch Reagan. I would sit with him to watch President Reagan speak from the heart. And he would tell me, you know, I was a businessman, I had my house, the Cuban government came in, Cuban dictators came in, the military took my land, took my businesses. And I then, in protest, stood up and ended up in jail. 6 years, tortured. Let us not forget that we as Americans have a responsibility to protect our freedoms. And I am so incredibly grateful, and I know my father is too, and my parents, that we have come to this land of the brave, the free and the brave. And I know that for us I have been honored to be able to contribute to this country. And I feel like here in America, we can have our voices heard. We've got the First Amendment. Second Amendment, ensure as a member of the NRA, board member of the NRA, proud board member of the NRA. and defend our families. And so I tell you, and I plead, let's work together. Let's find the common goal. Let's keep talking to each other, even if we don't agree all the time. It's okay. Our kids don't agree all the time. Shalom and I don't agree all the time. But we love each other. We love our family. We love our GOP family. And we have got to make it work. And we have got to find a way to unite. Because I don't want Hillary Clinton. She's the greatest threat to our religious liberties. She is the greatest threat to our faith and to our principles. And we have a responsibility not only for our generation, but for the next generation to come. Thank you.
In conclusion, we very much appreciate your hospitality. It's wonderful to be here. I spent 8 years growing up in Houston. Which I think is a pretty busy street now. I don't know if you'd let your kids get so close to the street like we did back then. And there's a lot of questions about morality and politics, and what's the moral question we're in? And I think Mercy just laid it out perfectly. She laid it out perfectly with the story of her father, my father-in-law. Can I just say, she's a little humble. How cool it is to have a father-in-law who tried to assassinate Fidel Castro. Who tried to stand up for his rights when the state had overstepped its right. And and let me tell you what that 80-year-old hero of mine is going to do. He's going to vote for Trump Pence. And here's why. Here's why. The moral question for Mercy and for me and for many is this. We have Clinton Incorporated, a couple, very unique political couple. He is known for getting impeached, disbarred, wasn't able, after being president of the United States, to step foot as a lawyer in the United States Supreme Court, was disbarred by the Supreme Court, paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. His wife leads our foreign policy to a place where we are not safe in our communities and in our homes. We are horrified by the headlines we read across the country with these radical Islamic terrorists that are infiltrating our country. I find the moral question to be this. How can a country that knows in every poll that she is neither honest nor trustworthy, how are we going to put her as the commander-in-chief into our nation's highest office, where she has to put her hand on the Bible and to swear an oath that she has already broken through the words of their own FBI director, who basically indicted and prosecuted her on national TV, even though he wasn't allowed to do it by the President of the United States for real? I find that to be the moral question. And for that reason alone, we will do everything to the last breath in our body to make sure that we're victorious in November. God bless you and thank you for having us.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Senator Cruz has been and is a passionate defender of the principles of freedom and liberty. He has stood alone when necessary. He has fought the good fight. He has kept the faith, and he will complete his course. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the husband to Heidi Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz.
enemy's curse. May you live in interesting times. These are nothing if not interesting times. I'm here this morning with a lot of friends, and I recognize there's some folks here and elsewhere at the convention who are not here. That's all right. You know, I'll say something to the folks here. Everyone here got involved in politics because we believe in something. I want you to think back when you first got involved in the political process, when you first started supporting a candidate, when you first ran for office. Why is it that you did? What's it about? What are you fighting for? One of the things I love, thank you, sir, God bless you. One of the things I love about this Texas delegation is these are women and men at Princeton.
Yes.
It has been the greatest privilege of my life to represent each of you in the United States Senate. When I was sworn in as a senator, I took an oath to defend the Constitution. That's an obligation I take very seriously. That is an oath I intend to honor every single day. In addition to the Constitution, I have an obligation to every man and woman here, and every man and woman in the state of Texas. I work for you. I work for you, and you have every right, and I would say even a duty, to hold me accountable.
Yes.
That's why I'm here this morning. Would have been the easiest thing in the world to turn tail and run, but that ain't gonna happen. I suspect most, if not all of y'all, understand that these folks holding cameras are not our friends. Really? They're not here because they want to have a beer with you. They're not here because they're planning to vote Republican in November. And so there's no story they want to write more than Republicans in disarray, convention on fire, everything going bad. That's what they're going to write. If you noticed it every night, that's going to be the story.
That's right.
Well, it's up to us to determine whether it's true or not. I do think the American people are watching what we do and not what they say.
Yes.
You know, I can tell you last night, when I addressed the convention because Donald Trump asked me to. And when Donald asked me to, he didn't ask me to endorse. And indeed, 3 days ago, I talked on the phone with him and told him I'm not going to endorse you.
Why not? That's right.
Well,
He
the answer to that, sir, I'm happy to answer that, but I'm not going to engage in a screaming fight. And indeed, I'm going to do questions and answers right now. What I wanted to do last night was lay out the principles I believe we should stand for as Republicans.
Yes.
In that speech last night, I did not say a single negative word about Donald Trump. And I'll tell you this morning and going forward, I don't intend to say negative things about Donald Trump. The media would love me to. I promise you every question when I step off the stage is going to be, please say something more about Donald Trump. Come on, it makes good news. What I did say is what all of us should believe and why all of us, I think, got into politics in the first place. I started the speech by congratulating Donald on winning the nomination. I knew. And then I encouraged folks here and at home that we deserve leaders who will stand for principle.
Yes.
Who will do what they say. And I made a particular point to address conservatives at home. Listen, I assume there's a reason the Trump campaign wanted me to speak. They saw my speech several hours before I gave it. They knew exactly what I was going to say. I assume the reason they wanted me to speak is they believed my delivering that message would encourage people to come out and vote, and they believed it would help them. If they didn't, I was perfectly happy to get on a plane and go home. But in that speech last night, I asked conservatives at home, I asked Americans at home, do not stay home in November.
That's right. That's right.
And I laid out a standard. I said we should vote for candidates that you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that's a standard I expect to be applied to me. I expect to be applied to every candidate on the ballot, from president down to dog catcher. This isn't just a team sport. We don't just put on red jerseys or blue jerseys and yay! This is about principles and ideals. This is about standing for what we believe in.
Exactly.
And you know, listen, I have to say, it was somewhat dismaying that apparently some of Donald's biggest partisans, right down front, when they heard that people should vote for someone you can trust to defend our freedom and defend our conscience, defend the Constitution, immediately they began booing. I've got to say that's a little bit troubling what they're saying.
New York values.
Now, I'm reminded of an old story of a man who's in the middle of a huge lawsuit, bet the company case, it means everything to him. His lawyer calls at the end of the trial, and he says, justice prevailed. The client immediately says, appeal immediately. Listen, I actually thought later last night, Newt had it exactly right. We want to win this race. Newt stood up and said, you know what, the standard Ted laid out, who will defend freedom? Yes. Who will be faithful to the Constitution? Newt said Donald Trump is the only candidate that meets that standard.
That's right. Yes, that's right. That's right.
I'll tell you this, if we want to win this election, that's the only way we're winning this election.
That's right.
By making the case to the American people. We're not going to win this election by yelling and screaming and attacking people. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any and all of your questions.
Are you going to vote for Trump?
Thank you, sir, for your question, and I will answer it the same way I have answered it many, many times when our friends in the press have asked it, which is that I am doing what millions of Americans do. I am watching. I am listening. And as I told you last night, the standard that I intend to apply is which candidate I trust to defend our freedom and be faithful to the Constitution. I can tell you, I'm not voting for Hillary. Hillary failed that test profoundly, and I will note a significant part of my speech last night was laying out the incredible damage of Hillary Clinton's vision.
I see yes, Ted. I see yes.
But you know, some of y'all may recall when I ran for Senate, and a lot of people here worked very hard in that race. And there were a lot of folks in that race that said, you know what, you've got to vote for the lieutenant governor. He's next in line. It's his turn. This is a party. Be a team player. He's the one who's next in line. And an awful lot of Texans took a different view.
Yes, we want.
I've laid out the standard I'm looking for, and I am hopeful. I'm going to be listening tonight. I'm going to be listening to Donald's speech. I'm going to be listening to how he and the campaign conduct themselves every day from now to November. And that's what I believe the American people are going to be doing also. And the way to win, as I tried with all my might to lay out last night, is not to just scream and yell and attack as a traitor anyone that would dare question our candidates. Yes, sir.
You said that not voting for Hillary Clinton. You said we should go vote. You didn't answer the question about Donald Trump. You feel that anyone else that criteria?
So I answered it with as much as I'm going to say, which is that I am watching and listening to make that decision. And when I talked about holding people accountable, I think that applies to all of us. That's what I'm doing. I am watching and listening. The election isn't today. And I am listening to the candidate. Now, what I don't intend to do is go out and throw rocks at Donald. I don't intend to criticize him. I intend, like a voter, like all of us, just to listen and make the best judgment I can. And every one of us, I think, has to follow our conscience. When friends of mine, when supporters of mine are asking what to do, the answer I give to everyone is follow your conscience. Do what you believe is right. Do what you believe defends your children and defends this country.
That you can unite this party like no other man in this party, even more than our candidate.
That's right.
By using just a few words. And we need to do it now.
Yeah.
We cannot do it. Unite. And we need to stand with you, and you need to stand with us.
So, sir, I appreciate the comments. And I will have to confess, what you said would be easy to do. How many people here are frustrated with politicians who just say anything? I'm going to answer your question. Listen, there are a lot of options that I could have taken that politically would have been a heck of a lot easier. There's option number one, which a whole bunch of people took, which is turn tail and run and don't come to the convention. There are a bunch of people that did that.
That is true.
I ain't one of them. There's another option. Let me tell you, the politically easy option is to stand up and pledge your allegiance to whoever the party nominee might be, no matter what. If you're an elected official, that's the right political outcome. And I'm going to tell you something, sir. I'm not going to lie to you. Whether you want me to or not, I'm not going to lie to you. And what I said last night is what I believe. So yes.
And I didn't say to support Donald Trump. I said support the party. The party.
That's what he's doing. That's what he's
You know,
doing.
okay, so your point was support the party.
That's what he's doing.
The Republican Party, and I will point...
Party is spoken.
Sir, I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm not going to engage in a screaming match. I actually believe in treating people with civility and respect. When it comes to supporting the party, number one, the 4 years I've been in office, there were an awful lot of elected officials in this room, across the party, and across the country, that I've traveled the country, I've traveled the state of Texas campaigning for, raising money for, fighting to help elect Republicans. But let me be very clear, this isn't a social club. It's not simply, Reagan gave a powerful speech 40 years ago where he said the Republican Party is not a fraternal order. It's not just my club. We either stand for shared principles or we're not worth anything. Let me ask folks here a related question. How many of y'all would like to see more leaders stand up to John Boehner and Mitch McConnell?
Yes!
I want to point out to folks here, you're seeing, and you saw last night, why so few elected leaders do. Because anytime you stand up to John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, leadership screams, support the team, you're a Republican, we're our leadership, sit down, shut up, just support the team, and damn it, if that's the price, I ain't going to do it. I'm going to honor the commitments I made to the voters.
Thanks for putting your hat in the ring. Now, if you were asked to give a piece of advice to our nominee, Donald Trump, what would you tell him to woo and draw and attract the conscience, the principles, the hard constitutionalists to join and rally around his banner?
I think that's a fabulous point. And I'll tell you, that is what I endeavored to do in every word of that speech last night. That was the speech last night. You want to know another way to look at the speech last night? An outline, my very best effort is an outline to Donald Trump and their campaign. This is how you win.
Yes!
You know, I was up last night on Twitter reading through different articles online. And one of them I read had a word cloud of last night versus prior nights of the convention. If you look at the speech I gave, the word cloud, the dominant word that's about 50 times bigger than any other word is the word freedom.
Right. Yes.
The prior night's word clouds, the dominant word, can anyone guess what it was? Trump. You know what? If we go to November and the dominant word the voters hear is Trump, or for that matter, if the dominant word is Hillary or email server, we're going to lose. You want to know how we win? We will win if the dominant message the voters hear is freedom, that this is about your life and your kids. That's how you win an election, and deserving to win an election.
Thank you, Ted. We love you. You are the voice for the conservative movement. And I want to ask you a question about an issue we had earlier in this week that's very difficult for a lot of us, and that is the rules of the party. The problem is, our rules have evolved to disfavor principled conservative candidates. We need the change in the future. Do you agree this party must get back to the founding principles by changing our rules to give every candidate a fighting chance to win the nomination?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that question. You know, I will point out the rules we have are not an accident.
That's right.
We have those rules because people in power want those rules. And unsurprisingly, when people in power write rules, they are designed to protect and perpetuate those in power. Now, the rules fights that happened on the Rules Committee, I very consciously stayed out of it. In fact, I wasn't in Cleveland. I was out of town. I didn't even arrive until that fight was over. I understand a lot of delegates fought passionately from the grassroots. My one comment that I made, and when I was asked about the rules, I said, you know, it seems to me that Republicans ought to be picking the Republican nominee. The Republican nominee. I think reforms that enhance the grassroots are beneficial. And so, on any particular rules issue, I didn't get engaged. I trust the delegates. I trust you to make those determinations. I will say, when those in power use raw power to try to stifle and silence dissent, that's not conduct befitting of a party that was founded by Abraham Lincoln. We'll do two more questions. Yes.
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for standing with Israel.
Yes.
Two-thirds of us in Texas and two-thirds of the people in this room are your delegates and alternates, and we love you. And we are so upset that the Trump people booed you when we are cheering for Trump at this point, at this convention. So I want to apologize for what they did to you.
Yes.
Some of the Never Trump people say that we should write your name in, and I'm saying I think that's a vote for Hillary. What is your opinion on that? Because we will take direction from you.
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you for the encouragement, and let me say to you, thank you for standing for Israel as well. Listen, I am not encouraging anybody to write my name in. That is not something I'm suggesting that anybody. I'm not a candidate in this race. We suspended our race on May 3rd. I was very clear. We didn't prevail in this race. I wanted to prevail in this race. We worked very hard to, but we didn't. And we lost the race. I recognize that. I respect the democratic process. I respect the will of the people. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Geraldine Sam. I've supported you, and we are a family. We're a family that we can agree to disagree, and that's okay. But you signed a pledge that said that you would support the party nominee. As a girl growing up, my mother and father them said that your word is your bond, and if you didn't believe that you were going to say it at that time, or you weren't going to do it at that time, then you shouldn't have said it, because your word is your bond. I am one of your delegates here. I supported you, and I expected you to keep your word and say that your word is your bond.
Hear, hear.
you, man, and thank you for speaking and speaking from your heart. I will tell you, when I stood on that debate stage, and they asked every candidate there, if you don't win, will you support the nominee? I raised my hand, and I raised my hand enthusiastically, with full intention of doing exactly that. And I'll tell you the day that pledge was abrogated. The day that was abrogated was the day this became personal. And as I said at the time, and I'm not going to get into criticizing or attacking Donald Trump, but I'll just give you this response. I am not in the habit of supporting people who attack my wife and attack my father. Pledge was not a blanket commitment that if you go and slander and attack Heidi, that I'm going to nonetheless come like a servile puppy dog and say thank you very much for maligning my wife and maligning my father. And I will note, sir, making crying signs in the back. I will note, sir, that you might have a similar view if someone were attacking your wife. In fact, I hope you would. I hope you would.
You know what? We got to get over it. This is politics. We got to unite.
No, this is not politics. I will tell the truth. I will not malign. I will not insult. I will not attack. I will tell the truth. This is not a game. It is not politics. Right and wrong matters. We have not abandoned who we are in this country. No, sir, I do not believe that is correct. And let me say this also. If anyone here thinks that I was eager to come to this convention
And vote for Hillary.
Thank you, sir.
Come on, come on.
If anyone thinks I was eager to come to this convention and give a speech laying out, supporting a great many of the policy positions laid out by Donald Trump, laying out why Hillary Clinton is utterly unfit to be president, despite the fact that neither he nor his campaign has ever taken back a word they said about my family, I promise you I was not eager to do that. That was not something I was happy to do. It was something I thought I had an obligation to do. I had an obligation to go and stand and speak. And I will say, what does it say when you stand up and say, vote your conscience? And rabid supporters of our nominee begin screaming, what a horrible thing to say. If we can't make the case to the American people that voting for our party's nominee is consistent with voting your conscience, is consistent with defending freedom and being faithful to the Constitution, then we are not going to win and we don't deserve to win.
That's right.
That's how you win elections. All right, one final question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I am from the Rio Grande Valley. I met you at the Church of the King while you were running for senator and my husband was running for Congress. And I asked you, are you a man of your word? You said, yes, ma'am, I am. And I asked you, if you don't keep your word, can I address you whenever?
Absolutely.
And you said that I could. I know that many things were said during the campaign, ugly things, terrible things that should have never taken place. I believe what you just said, that you defend your family, the integrity of your wife, of your marriage, of your father. And I voted for you. I loved you dearly, and I have great respect for you. However, I have to say that it is not about Donald Trump. It is not about Ted Cruz or Heidi Cruz or Rafael Cruz. It is about the United States of America.
it is about the United States. And I will point out that every day in the Senate, I have spent every waking moment fighting for this country, fighting for you, fighting to honor the promises I made. And by the way, there's a reason why others don't. Because the reaction in Washington is you get screamed and hollered down when you follow your commitments. My speech, you do it anyway, yes, and that's what I did last night. Because last night, what I laid out last night was not a speech that was focused on me. Last night was a speech that was focused entirely on the United States of America, on a path forward. Our country is at the edge of a precipice. We are at the risk of losing the greatest country in the history of the world. And my soul cries at where this country is, at what we're doing to the freedom of our kids and grandkids.
Yes.
And what I said last night is what I believe is the only path to saving this country. And it is not simply blindly chanting a name and yelling down dissenters.
Yes, absolutely.
That is not, I believe in free speech. Let me point out, by the way, can anyone imagine our nominee standing in front of voters answering questions like this? I owe this to you. I owe this to you every day because I work for you. And so I'm going to answer the questions, even fellows who yell and scream and insult. You know what? You got a right under the First Amendment to express your views, and I'm going to defend your rights even to insult me. That's what I believe. But when you said it's about the United States of America, I can tell you this. If we don't defend freedom and the Constitution, and if we don't make the case to the American people that our candidate can be trusted to defend freedom and the Constitution, we will lose and we will deserve to lose. My speech last night was entirely about this country and how we save this country, and I am going to continue to tell you the truth each and every day. Whether or not it is politically helpful or convenient, I wasn't elected to do the convenient thing. I was elected to stand up and do what's right. Thank you. And God bless you.
I want to invite all the press to stay. Our meeting is getting Texans are just getting started here. Media, y'all are all invited to stay. All right, if everybody would please have their seats. Please have your seat. We're going to continue on with our program. Everybody have your seats.